Assume that the MPC is 0.75. Assuming only the multiplier effect matters, how will an increase in government's purchases of 200 billion shift the aggregate demand curve? Well, we saw that the spending multiplier was equal to 1 over the MPC, or the marginal propensity to spend. If we factor in other things, this is a very simplified way of seeing it, but let's just keep it this way. So 1 over 1 minus 0.75 is going to be the same as 1 over 0.25, which is equal to 4. So this 200 billion increase will be multiplied by 4, which will lead to an increase in aggregate demand by 800 billion. What will happen in this graph with the current interest rate of 2%? One thing I want to highlight from this graph here is one of the other questions that is not in this version of the quiz I have here, but it's just an extra one that you may see pop up, is this idea that the money demand curve is downward sloping, which means that with higher interest rates we demand less money, but with lower interest rates we demand more money. But the money supply curve is not impacted by changes in interest rates. So that may be one of the other questions you might see. Anyways, coming back to this, if we have 2% interest rate, we have greater money demand than current money available. We have excess money demand. So people who have bonds will start selling off those bonds. And the thing that you have to remember from bonds is that their price and their interest rate, their implied interest rate, are negatively related. So as a lot of people want to sell off bonds, it's going to drop the value of those bonds. The face value, or the price that people pay for these bonds, will drop. However, as the price drops, as I just mentioned, interest rates will rise. The implied interest rates on those bonds will go up because for a lower price you could buy them. The end value, the end price that you get at maturity is still the same. So the implied interest rate over the course of the time that you have it is going to be higher. So people will sell more bonds, which drives interest rates up, is what we're looking at. So that's the only good answer here. Interest rates will not go down. The price of those bonds will go down, but the actual interest rates will go up. If there are automatic stabilizers but no deliberate action by policymakers, how would government expenditures and taxes change as output falls? Well, automatic stabilizers are things that will help the economy when we're going through a recession. So for things to help as we're going through recession, we would expect that as output falls, government expenditures would rise to help the recession, and taxes would fall to help the recession, to help people that have difficulty when they lose their job. Examples of this could be government expenditures rising because there's more transfer payments, more employment insurance being paid out, and other things like that, and less taxes being collected because if you earn less money, your income taxes are based on the income earned, so naturally that's going to be lower as well. It's not a lump sum payment. So government expenditures would rise and taxes fall. According to the crowding out effect, how do the interest rate and spending change when the government spending increases? So defining the crowding out effect is this idea that as the government decides to undergo some big projects, they're going to need money. And if they used to be saving money, they used to have public saving, well, as they're running these big projects, they might have less public saving, which kind of shift the savings curve left, or they might even start borrowing, which shifts the savings curve even further left, which will have an impact on increasing interest rate. And the reason why it's called a crowding out effect is as this interest rate rises, investment spending falls. So even though government spending goes up, which is one component of GDP, investment spending, which is another component of GDP, will fall. So the interest rate will go up, but not investment. The interest rate increases and investment spending decreases. If the Bank of Canada conducts open market sales, how do the money supply and aggregate demand change? So we have to remember what open market sales is versus open market purchases. So here, open market sales is the Bank of Canada selling treasury bills, government bonds, and everything else to the public. And in exchange, the public will give them money in exchange of these pieces of paper. So as this happens, the Bank of Canada had these pieces of paper in their vaults, and now they're giving it to the public, but they're taking the public's money and putting it into the vaults. So this money does not get multiplied. So the money supply, the money available in the economy, will actually fall. And as the amount of money that's available in the economy falls, we know that it's going to lead to higher interest rates and aggregate demand falling. So the money supply will fall and the aggregate demand will shift left. Yeah. If on the other hand they make open market purchases, so they're buying people's treasury bills and so on, well, they're injecting money into the economy, and then they'd be stimulating the economy. But this is the opposite. Hopefully that clarifies the questions for chapter 15. As I said, there's one more that deals with that money supply and how it relates to interest rates, and money supply is just unresponsive to changes in interest rates.